When I did my history degree, my first assignment was to read and review a book chosen from a reading list. I picked at random. It was Arthur Marwick's The New Nature of History. I hated it. Every moment of it. I found his writing style pompous and self-absorbed. His arguments were hypocritical and dependent upon straw men. But the thing I hated the most about it was that it wasn't a history book. It was a book about history, discussing the methods of historians and how to look at history. But I was doing a degree in this topic. Of course I understood history, right? I wrote my book review and handed it in, and I was glad to be done with that book. But I wasn't done with it. Throughout my degree, I forgot what I was doing as I studied, what exactly history was, how and why I was writing essays. Arthur Marwick's book became key to understanding what I was doing. I grounded my model for understanding history in it, not individual events, but the methods of historians as a whole. I still hate the book and the way it's written, but annoyingly, it's probably the most useful history book I've ever read. You see, a historian isn't simply someone who learns and relays a series of events or dates. A historian is going through a method when they write, a method which all historians, whether writing books, articles or YouTube video scripts, follow. This video will help you to visualize what exactly history is, and it will show you the method which all historians, whether they know it or not, follow. What is the past? The past is the events which have taken place. All aspects of human behaviour and all human decisions, large and small. Societies which rose and fell, ideas and institutions, eating habits, marital customs. The past affects all aspects of our lives in the present and will continue to affect what happens in the future in ways that we can't even begin to predict. Whether we know about the past or not, it still has this influence. Past movements of populations, oppressions, religious faiths, and communal identities, all established thousands of years ago, still affect us directly today. But the past is past. It's completely unobtainable, and entirely separate from us now. It's impossible to access the past and truly understand it. Likewise, for all of its influence, we do not have an inherent understanding of the past. Quite the opposite, in fact. Our understanding of the past is rife with misunderstanding and mistakes from our own cultural biases, and from our vantage point in the present. We have to understand the past differently to when it occurred, because we know what comes after it. Thus, we can only interact with the past indirectly through the evidence that it leaves us. Memories of events in the past, or the sources that the past leaves, archaeological and written evidence, printed and painted, built evidence, and so on. People's memories of past events are flawed. They are intangible and changeable. People misremember things and dates and forget details. Memories of the Vietnam War, for example, when not presented with external evidence, can become useless, with different confrontations being blurred together and even basic chronology becoming confused. When they fall out of living memory, events are remembered in varying ways, but they are influenced by the culture around them. The charge of the Light Brigade in the Crimean War, the Battle of the Somme in World War I, and the Dunkirk evacuation in World War II were, at their respective times, immense disasters and embarrassments for the British military. But through the lens of eventual victory in these wars, the events have become myths and are seen as heroic and necessary sacrifices, a perspective which would have been absent as the events occurred. If the outcome of these wars were different, the events would also be imagined differently. The perspective of these events is defined by events which occurred after them. Where memories of the past are intangible and changeable, the sources which the past leaves are tangible and unchangeable. Writing and archaeological evidence are the cornerstones of the historical method, a historian's raw material. These sources are still separate from the past. We see them through our modern lens, and can still misunderstand them. For much of the medieval period, Stonehenge and similar structures were perceived as the work of literal giants. The historical sources were there, but the interpretation was viewed through the lens of its time. These remnants are, unavoidably, an incomplete sample. No matter how much evidence we have, we can't have all evidence of the past. Therefore, we cannot fully recreate or understand the past. Though by themselves a single source can't tell us much, by using several sources, we can begin to piece together the remnants of the past. Historians are trained to critically analyse the primary sources which have been left by the past, to challenge or apply nuance to the myths left by the past. This is the historical method. In publishing their findings in articles, books, lectures, or videos, historians create history, but they also create sources of their own. They create secondary sources. These are added to our pool of primary sources, and are then applied by future historians with the primary sources. This means that future historians can further build upon our understanding of the past, by building on the work that came before. The collation of all primary and secondary sources is what we know of the past. That is history. Historians create new secondary sources all the time. Books, articles, lectures, or videos, and their work can be anywhere from revolutionary to fundamentally flawed. Provided they follow this method, they still add to our understanding of the past. Secondary sources are cross-referenced with each other and with the primary sources. No one source is or can be instrumental, rendering all others irrelevant. They can merely change the way that other sources are seen. There don't need to be new sources for a historian to reanalyze the same evidence. They can simply bring a new idea or their own expertise to the field. Our understanding of the past, in this way, is constantly deepened, improved upon, and changed. The use of secondary sources is almost certainly the most confusing part of history for those who are learning it. But it's essential, particularly in the later stages of a history degree, to show what makes your writing and analysis unique, differentiating it from other works in the field. The past is, by definition, unchanging, but it's also unobtainable. By contrast, history, our understanding of the past, is constantly changing. It has to be. As we gain more sources, primary or secondary, we learn more things about the past, and our body of sources grows. History consequently changes. History can be seen as a fool's errand. No matter how many sources are created or found, we can never truly recreate the past. But history is integral to society as a whole. All societies have a past, but not all societies have a history. Those with a history are culturally enriched. They know more about where they have come from, and can better allow that to influence their present and future. By misunderstanding history or the past, individuals and whole societies can become misinformed about their place in the world. There are conmen who want to take advantage of people's lack of awareness of history. They can be those who wish to write and sell sensational books, or documentaries which are less than reliable, but there are also those who wish to take advantage of our misunderstanding more actively, which can have real-world consequences that I probably don't have to spell out. If someone purports to provide you with all of the true secret details of the past in a flashy book or documentary, a short animated video or quippy comment, be cynical, be analytical, look at their sources for yourself. Does their perspective make sense? What are their motives or their affiliations? Why might they say this? Is it overly simple? What other explanations are there? Do our sources corroborate those explanations as well? These are the questions that historians ask when they read historical works, and when they write their own. Thanks for watching. You can support me on Patreon, Ko-fi, and PayPal if you want, but liking and subscribing supports me as well. I hope this video is useful and helps you better understand history, whether you're a history student or just someone who's passively interested. Again, thank you.